Yo, what is going on, guys? It is Aranok, and today for you guys, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm going to bring you my top 5 heroes that I would love to see added to the game. There's obviously a lot of heroes in the game at the moment, but I think these might add some new, interesting game dynamics, as well as introducing more of Blizzard's interesting characters to players who have never seen them before. Let's jump straight in at number 1.
We will never be slaves!
Grom Hellscream is an important character to the Horde story in World of Warcraft. There's even a book written about him, called Lord of the Clans, but he first appeared in Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos. I started playing World of Warcraft just at the end of Burning Crusade, and I got really invested in the story and so immediately bought Reign of Chaos. When I first played it, I had no idea who Grom was, and at that point, I hadn't even reached Garrosh and Nagrand yet. And so I had no idea who the Hellscreams were. I'd always just seen the statue of Manaroth, which was dedicated to Grom. In Warcraft 3, he plays in a very Blade Master kind of style, and I can see this being replicated in Heroes of the Storm. There's a great thread over on the Heroes of the Storm forums where someone recommended to build Grom into the game. I'll include a link to that in the description below, but in a nutshell, they list his abilities as spinning and dealing damage, sacrificing his health to regain attack speed and movement speed, and shouting to deal damage and stun enemies. Personally, I love the character of Grom, and I would love to see him replicated in Heroes of the Storm, and hopefully Blizzard will pull him in pretty soon. Number 2.
Malthael.
Malthael was originally the Archangel of Wisdom in the Diablo series, but he became the Angel of Death prior to the game's events. As an assassin, he'd be a really interesting character to play. With some abilities being used after death and all death related, I think that Blizzard would have a really unique and interesting character. While not totally unique, some of his abilities could be linked to that of Leoric, where when he becomes a ghost he can still use his abilities to cheat death. And I think that'd be really interesting to see from an assassin's point of view. Like with Grom, there's many posts on the forums that ask for Malthael to be added to the game and provide concepts and ideas, with abilities centered around draining life and crippling the enemy. Overall, I love the character of Malthael, and I'm really excited to see if Blizzard add him to the game in the end, because I think he'd be a great addition to the roster.
No one can stop death.
Number 3.
Pain. Agony. My hatred burns through the cavernous deeps.
At number 3 we have one of the most memorable characters from the World of Warcraft, at least from my opinion. Deathwing was always an enigma to me. I always heard about him through the lore, and then when Cataclysm was announced, I was so excited to see what he could do. And when it was announced that Deathwing would completely reshape Azeroth, changing the World of Warcraft forever, I was so excited, as were many of the other players at the time. When the expansion launched, a new achievement was added, Stood in the Fire, and I loved collecting achievements, so I knew I had to get this one. The achievement was earned by completing one simple task, getting killed by Deathwing. I heard stories over trade chat that Deathwing would fly over random zones, coating a place in fire, and so I spent many hours sitting in these locations, waiting and seeing if Deathwing would appear. When he finally did, I was beside myself. I'd never really seen an NPC so large, one that completely shadowed an entire zone. And so, as I sat there slowly dying from Deathwing's breath, I knew that this could be one of the best last bosses that Blizzard had ever created. Sadly, that wasn't the case. Spine of Deathwing and Madness of Deathwing in World of Warcraft were not very fun in my opinion, and I can remember the trouble we had trying to get Deathwing to roll during heroic mode, and I'm sure that many other World of Warcraft players would agree with me. However, I really think that he'd be a great hero for Heroes of the Storm. In his dragon form, he could be a lot like the Dragon Champion, breathing fire over a small zone, swatting players away, but this time with his tail and not his feet, and roaring to blind or silence the enemy team. Even in his human form, I think Deathwing would be an interesting tank. However, I do think that he'd be best suited to be a dragon. It'd be a very unique hero to play as well. I've read online that people seem to think that Deathwing wouldn't be a good hero to have, simply because of the scaling issues. However, I look at characters like Sergeant Hammer or Asmodan, and if you place them next to normal-sized humans such as Raynor or Uther, they're not meant to be that small either, so I don't see this as being a huge problem. And I can't wait to see if Blizzard add him to the game. Number 4.
Hey everybody, our glorious leader has returned. Hey man, what's up, cowboy?
What do you got for me, Swan?
Rory Swan is an awesome character from the StarCraft series. I instantly took a liking to him the first time I played through StarCraft 2, and when the time came for me to control Rory in the battlefield, I was so excited. Recently I've been thinking a lot about how adding Swan to the game would work, but then I've thought about the other StarCraft units that have just been taken and had a name stuck on them, like Lieutenant Morales and Sergeant Hammer. They represent the standard medic and siege tank units from the game. And in StarCraft 2, Rory Swan plays in the similar style to the Marauder unit, and so if he was added to Heroes of the Storm, he'd basically just be a Marauder. In StarCraft 2, there's an ability where the Marauder's attack can slow the enemy unit, and so Rory Swan's trait could be similar to this. His basic attacks could slow the enemy. I can see that this could be overpowered, however, so I've been thinking how to combat this, and I've come up with what I think is a reasonable solution. Swan could walk and run slightly slower than the rest of the heroes. Therefore, when attacking an enemy one-on-one, he'd need to rely on his basic attacks to slow them enough just so he can reach them. This trait could be useful in teamfights too. However, Swan doesn't have to be an assassin necessarily. He could be a specialist. His trait could be that every third basic attack crits on buildings and minions, or that his attacks destroy a tower's ammo. He could even call in mercenaries as one of his ultimates, just like Raynor does with his Banshees. Rory would make a nice addition to the StarCraft team. We already have many of the other major characters such as Raynor, Tychus, Kerrigan, and even Matt Horner is implied to be in the game inside the Hyperion. If Swan was added, I know I would definitely start playing him, as he would definitely bring in a new kind of level of team fights, one that relies more on moving while hitting.
I've been working on some interesting modifications for our ships.
What are you?
I am Isha. Your Majesty used to store all her ideas, thoughts, and plans within me. Do you not remember?
The last character I want to see is the one I want to see the most, Isha from StarCraft 2. She's a character where as soon as I saw her, I knew I liked her. She was so unique and just really cool looking. Isha is a unique Zerg character who works just like a computer, a reflection of Raynor's adjutant. I've noticed that every support character in the game is a good character. Uther, Tassadar and Karazim to name a few. So Isha could be the first to break that trend and become the first support to be evil. She could work a lot like Abathur, staying back and aiding from behind your team's lines. I think it'd be so interesting to see how she could work. Her ultimates could be really cool, a Leviathan that deals damage, mirroring Raynor's Hyperion, or even something similar to Abathur's Monstrosity. Obviously all the heroes I've mentioned should be unique. I've only used examples from other heroes as a ground basis to see where Blizzard could go. So there you have it, my top 5 heroes that I want to see in Heroes of the Storm. Let me know in the comments what heroes you guys want to see, and remember to like and subscribe, as it really helps me out when you do. Until next time guys, see ya!